All right, number 3, we're going to be doing the same thing. We have a ray drawn, and we want to find the 6 trig functions based on the angle given. Find the 6 trig functions for the angle given right here. All right, so drawing this, again, think about the orientation, the x and y axis. We have a line going this way out from the horizontal, and I'm going to call this my point, and we have the order pair negative 2 square root of 2, and then negative 2, meaning we went left and down. This is the x coordinate, this is the y, so that means left this side, and then this side. All right, so this side is negative 2 square root of 2, and then we go down 2 for the y direction. And the angle that they're using is phi, like a little 0 with a line through it. It's called phi. All right, based on this, we're going to do again Pythagoras theorem to find the long side C. So that is a squared. So I'm just going to go ahead and write it down with the numbers. Negative 2 square root of 2, a squared, plus b squared, which will be a negative 2 squared, equals c squared. When you square both of these, you get a 4. This becomes a 2. 4 times 2 gives us 8. Negative 2 squared gives you 4, equals c squared. So we get 12 equals c squared. And when you square root these, right, you have to reduce this radical. So 2 times 6, and then 2 times 3. So you got a pair of 2's, means you can reduce this and pull a 2 out. But this 3 is by itself, it can't come out. So you have 2, and then the square root of 3 equals c. So this is your c value that we're missing. All right, and then based on that, we can do the 6 trig functions. Actually, did that out of order. I want the CSC first. CSC. That's okay. And then cotangent. All right. So based on this angle, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Negative 2 over 2 square root of 3. All right, so what I would do is reduce. You can divide both of these by 2 since that's one term. So that will give you negative 1 over the square root of 3. And then you need to rationalize the denominator. We don't like to have square roots on the bottom. So you're going to basically multiply the square root of 3 on the top and bottom. In doing so, this will give you negative square root of 3 on top, and then square root of 3 times square root of 3 is the square root of 3 squared, which just gives you 3. So essentially, the thing that happens is you bring the square root up, and then take the square root off the bottom, and then that's what you get. So negative square root of 3 divided by 3 for sine. All right, based on sine, we're going to go from this reduced form. If I flip this part right here, so the square root's on the bottom, it's still on the bottom, but when I do the reciprocal, the 3 goes on top, 1 goes on the bottom. So this just reduces for CSC, negative square root of 3 divided by 1. And anytime you divide something by 1, you just get itself. So just negative square root of 3. That's what we'll get for this one. But the next one is cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So it'll be this over this. Negative 2 square root of 2 over hypotenuse 2 square root of 3. So again, both the 2's will divide out. So we will be left with square root of 2 over square root of 3. So if you follow what we were mentioning here, take the square root term, put it up top. So I have the square root of 2 times square root of 3. And then on the bottom, just take the square root off. Now, since both these terms are under square root, we can multiply them. So 2 times 3 would give us square root of 6 over 3. And that will be fine for cosine. Now, I guess it's not really a part, we just have to flip it. So for secant, we'll just pick up from here. We have the square root of 3 over square root of 2. Do the same thing, square root of 2 on top and bottom. And then that will give us square root of 6 over 2. So I'm trying to do them by their pairs. All right, so cosine, we determine with square root of 6 over 3. Cosine is adjacent. Oh, I left the negative off. I'm sorry. I started with my negative here, and I did not transfer it. When I went over here, it should be negative and negative. So it should be negative square root of 6 over 3. I'm going to be careful with that. All right. Tangent now is opposite over adjacent. So tangent will be negative 2 divided by negative 2 square root of 2. All right, both the negative 2's will divide each other out, so you'll get 1 over square root of 2. And then when you rationalize this, square root on top, square root of 2, take the square root off the bottom, so just 2. So this is what we get. From the reduced form, if we flip this, for cotangent, we're going to get square root of 2 over 1, which just gives us the square root of 2. All right, so doing the first three will give you the bottom 3. So tangent, the negatives do divide out here, so we just went with square root of 2 divided by 2. All right, and then the bottom 3 we already have. CSC, negative square root of 3. SEC was the square root of 6 divided by 2. Did I lose a negative here as well? Secant. Yes, I did. When I brought this 3 over 2 down, I didn't bring the negative. So this one should also be negative. So it comes from cosine. I didn't bring the negative right here. So that's what is throwing this one. So this should be a negative square root of 6 over 2. That's what I did, the same thing there. And then with cotangent, just the square root of 2.